to the podium. My name is Daphne Zainab Kamara. Our quote for today comes from former United States freedom fighter Martin Luther King, and it says, "Non-violence means avoiding not only external physical violence, but also internal violence of spirit. You not only refuse to shoot a man, but you refuse to hate him." Well, coming up in this edition of the Podium, Anti-Corruption Commission passes the scorecard of the Control of Corruption Indicator in the Millennium Challenge Corporation, MCC. Sierra Leone is set to launch the first National Global Competitiveness Report 2018-2019 in Freetown. Parliamentarians are set to debate the 2019 budgets. That's really happening. Where police arrest over 58 people at Lumley over riotous conduct, which left a mosque and fuel station destroyed. Well, all these and more coming up in this edition of the Podium, which you can be part of and send your messages to 088-373-504. The number again is 088-373-504. This is the Podium coming to you live on SMC. First on the podium this afternoon, over 58 people are presently under police custody, helping investigation on the Monday fracas at Lumley following the dispute over a land by a mosque and an owner of a filling station. The disturbance left the fuel station destroyed. An attempt was also made to vandalize the mosque. Mama Suma was there and our reports.
This is the aftermath of last night's fracas at Lumley over the dispute of a portion of land which a mosque and a fuel station are both claiming. According to reports, the owner of the fuel station attempted to block the access road but was resisted by some youth. The Masjid Al-Fatiha Jamaat and the Lyonko filling station have been battling over the said portion of land for the past years, which attracted the intervention of the Ministry of Lands. The Lyonko filling station supervisor, Pastor Solomon Passins, said the mosque was built opposite the fuel station before they were evicted, but later relocated to the swamp area. He added that the former management of the filling station allowed them to use the access road to the mosque, which has now resulted to this problem.
The Member of Parliament,
Member of Parliament Honorable Ibrahim Tawakonte came with 500 youths for the construction of the wall. He just wanted to make a cheap political gain. And even the police that were around were overwhelmed because of the crowd, and that was illegal on their side.
Minister of Lands, Housing and Environment, Dr. Dennis Sandi, described the situation as very unfortunate. He informed SLBC that so many interventions were made between the two parties to see how best they could resolve the matter amicably, but all proved futile. He promised to work with relevant authorities to amicably resolve the matter.
And my minister's take is that this is really very disappointing. I mean, we are now in the 21st century, and this country should move forward. I've been here several times with my deputy, Mr. Rex Bonafa, and senior members of my ministry who have engaged with all the relevant stakeholders here, including the Imam and Sheikhs here of this mosque. I've also, of course, held discussions previously with my colleague, the Minister of Trade and Industry, and of course the police. Of course, they are present here. This thing should not have escalated into where we are currently, and I'm really saddened by the turn of events.
SLBC tried to reach out to the Imam of Masjid Al-Fatiha Jamaat, but to no avail, while some youth of Lumley who witnessed the situation had this to say.
We just see some group, the old cutlass.
The group we saw upon their arrival visited the fuel station before going to the masjid and destroyed the masjid. They were armed with cutlass. They even tried to harm me. It was really unfortunate.
Deputy Inspector General of Police Fuad Dabo confirmed to SLBC that over 30 people are presently under investigation. He warned people not to take the laws into their hands.
The whole operation lasted for just 15 minutes. After Maghrib prayer, we have arrested about 37 and we're investigating. Thank you.
Meanwhile, the local unit commander of the Lumley police station, Andrew Camara, debunked the allegation that live rounds were fired to dispatch the crowd. SLBC News, Mariam Asuma reporting.
The Anti-Corruption Commission has passed the scorecard of the Control of Corruption Indicator in the Millennium Challenge Corporation MCC. The anti-graft agency scored 71%, moving from 49% last year. This is the country's highest score in the Control of Corruption Indicator since the introduction of the Millennium Challenge Corporation MCC card in 2004. The MCC is an initiative of the government of the United States of America to provide aid to developing countries to fight widespread poverty through economic growth. The MCC scorecard consists of 20 indicators under 3 broad categories: economic freedom, ruling justly, and investing in people. But how does it feel to score 71% on corruption, which is the highest since the MCC scorecard was initiated in 2004? Well, I have in the studios the Deputy Commissioner General, ACC, Shirley Davis. Good afternoon, welcome to the podium.
Thank you, and it's a pleasure to be here.
How does it feel scoring this much percentage, 71, compared to last year's 49?
I think it's exciting, not only for the ACC, but for the country as a whole. We are very much aware of the fact that the control of corruption is a hard hurdle under the Millennium Challenge Corporation for any country to pass. Over the years, Sierra Leone has been grappling with this major challenge in the control of corruption. Otherwise, we could have, been able to achieve the compact. But over the years, control of corruption has been a challenge. We were able to succeed in getting the 53%, that was in 2016. Apparently, in 2016, when we scored 53%, we could not do well in other areas as well, so we could not secure the compact. This year, we have been able to make a big leap from 49% last year to 71%.
So
I think it's
would we
remarkable.
secure the compact?
Well, in terms of securing the compact, Sierra Leone has to pass other indicators, at least 10 out of the 20 indicators, including the control of corruption. But this year we were able to succeed in getting a pass on the control of corruption, but there were challenges with the other indicators as well. So we could not secure the compact because we could not do well in other indicators.
So what can you say is responsible for this?
Well, I would say that in terms of the pass on corruption, I would say that we have been able to, in a very short period, do a number of things that we thought had brought about a change in the perception of the people of Sierra Leone. Because let's not make any mistake that when it comes to assessing corruption, it is mostly perception. It's laden with perception, and the people of Sierra Leone are very much akin to what is happening around them. Quite recently, of course, with the appointment of the new commissioner, Francis Wade Kaifada, a number of measures have been put in place in terms of expanding the scope of our operations, particularly focusing on deepening recovery of stolen wealth. As I speak, we have recovered over 5.7 billion euros, and the numbers are increasing. So we believe that once we concentrate on deepening the recovery and also going after not small fishes but big fishes at this time, the public are now resonating with the work of the Commission.
So you are attributing this score to the most recent achievements you've made?
Well, I would say largely to what the ACC has done and other partners as well, oversight institutions like the Audit Service and all the institutions of governance, and particularly on the position of the political leadership. Because I think it was His Excellency who first declared war on corruption when he took over the reins of governance. And following that, a number...
But the ACC was established long before he came in.
Yes.
And so you want to say that they have not been doing much?
Well, I would say that there has been an increased impetus into the fight against corruption. There has been some measures taking place on our activities on the political front, but I think there is an increased impetus that has been given to the fight against corruption.
So would you say it's because of the political will you being given? Because most times you were grappling with the problem of not having the free hand to prosecute and go after certain people, but now you can go after whoever just because the president says corruption is key in his agenda.
I would say largely political will is one key ingredient in the fight against corruption. Once you have the political will, of course, the other measures can be taken by the head institution. But let me say this, that we have over the period been involved in the fight against corruption, and when it comes to taking the decisions, the right decisions, for example, to prosecute, I think that is where the political will comes in handy. For the first time, we have the temerity, I would say, to prosecute a former vice president. We have the temerity to also prosecute high-ranking officials. This time, we are going after the corruption issues. We are going after the big fishes and not the small fishes. So I think the perception has changed. The people of Sierra Leone has been yearning for this, and this is what we're giving them. We are going after the issues, and we are pursuing corruption wherever it rears its head.
But Mr. Davis, don't you think this success would be attributed to the method you're using now? Because now we see you not going to the courts mostly. You are asking the people, making a payment plan, and you recovered over billions of loans.
I spoke about the initiative of the new commissioner to deepen the recovery, and this is part of our national recovery plan.
So don't you think that's a success?
It is, and I think
because most times when the cases go to court, we don't know what happens therein, and the people don't get to pay.
Well, let's not make mistakes. Going to court is essential. It's very important that we punish offenders, and we are pursuing that as well. The recovery of revenue that otherwise would have been misappropriated is also very key. We are pursuing both fronts. But let's understand that when it comes to recovery, we have to be very certain that the amount involved is such a colossal amount, and for which the individuals involved have agreed to repay those monies back to the consolidated fund. We know how it costs, how much it costs for litigation, and sometimes the probability of getting success in court can be a challenge. But once we get, acquiescence from those persons involved that they're willing to pay, of course we'll go down the road. But this is not to say that every other, request for payment would be accepted by the Commission. We look on those matters on a case-by-case basis, as well as the evidential threshold. Where the evidential threshold is not very strong enough for us to get a conviction in court, perhaps we could, agree on a settlement. Yes.
So let's talk about what does it mean. Would this make us see the anti-corruption bringing in more methods in trying to fight corruption?
Of course. One of the measures we're trying to really achieve, in fact, going on the prosecutorial road, is to see if we can have a special court on corruption, so that we could expedite trial of our cases in court. Because one of the concerns people have been raising is the fact that our cases take too long in court, and sometimes even when judgments are meted out, sometimes the fines are below the expectations of the public, and even below the statutory fines which are in the Act. So what we're saying is that if we have a specialized division of the High Court that looks into anti-corruption cases separately, I think it will help to grow the jurisprudence. Apart from growing the jurisprudence, it helps the trial judges also to specialize in those areas and to speedily trial cases in court, and the public gets to know the outcomes as and when those matters go to court.
I'm also deviating a bit from this success. Let's go back to the closure of St. Mary's. We know that they were supposed to pay GST that they are owing the government, but most people view it as a duplication of efforts because that's supposed to be the job of NRA.
I agree with you in part, because of course we expect NRA to do their job, And if this had been done by NRA, we would not have been in the picture, actually. So what we are doing is part of our responsibility to stem the tide of wastage of our revenue generation, and where we feel that an institution that is having the statutory responsibility to do the job and not doing it. So we have the moral responsibility to ensure that we stem the tide of wastage. So we are doing our job, and we expect that institutions of governance that have responsibility to do what they're mandated to do so without the intervention of the ACC. We'll be very glad if NRA takes the lead in ensuring that, you know, institutions pay their taxes when they do. If not, ACC also have the responsibility to ensure that we stem the tide.
Okay, thank you very much. Continue to stay with us. We'll come back to you, Deputy Commissioner General, Anti-Corruption Commission, Shirley Davis. Well, for another issue this afternoon, Sierra Leone is set to launch the first National Global Competitiveness Report 2018-2019 at the British Council Hall in Freetown. The Global Competitiveness Report, GCR, is the product of the World Economic Forum, famous for its annual summits attended by key heads of states and leading business personalities. The forum is based on the belief that progress happens by bringing together people from all walks of life who have the drive and the influence to make positive change. National competitiveness measures, in comparison to other countries, their ability to produce goods and services that people and foreigners prefer to buy. Well, the national launch will focus on implications for Sierra Leone's policy options for future development. Well, Dr. Omodele Jones is the Chief Executive Officer of FJP Development and Management Consultants, which is responsible for the annual Executive Opinion Survey of local business leaders in both countries that contributes to the development of the GCR. Welcome to the podium.
Thank you. Good afternoon.
It's a mouthful. Let's talk about this Global Competitiveness Report.
Right. I think it's useful to put it in context. We've just discussed the matter of the MCC Compact, and there was a very important point that was raised by my good friend Mr. Davis about the passing of Sierra Leone on the control of corruption, but not on enough indicators to allow us to access the hundreds of millions of dollars that are available from the American MCC Compact. That is because we do not have, and we have not historically, but I hope we will soon start moving towards a broad-based integrated development agenda, action agenda. Because when you deal with things individually and in isolation, then sometimes you miss the big picture. Now, competitiveness is about the big picture. It's about what we need to do as a country to ensure that tomorrow is better than today. It's what we need to do about as a country to ensure that we have the accountability that people like the MCC are looking for, so that we can deliver results for our country. And the interesting thing about competitiveness is that you cannot look at it in isolation, because you do not. The word competitiveness indicates that someone else is around. Mm-hmm. And the other people who are around are other countries who are in this race for development and prosperity. So we cannot, in isolation, look at what we're doing in Sierra Leone. We have to compare ourselves with other countries and say, okay, are we running the race as good as they are?
So where
does
Sierra Leone stand in the competition?
Well, I think historically we know where we've been. It's not been as good as it should be. Unfortunately, we remain in the lower 10% of competitiveness in the world. Of the 140 countries that were surveyed, we covered Liberia and Sierra Leone. Liberia was rated 132nd out of the 140 countries, and Sierra Leone was rated 134th out of the 140 countries. But that is not the critical issue. Where you are is only an indication of what you need to do. Okay. And I think the important thing is, especially now with the new administration, as we have seen on control of corruption, are we now going to have a competitiveness agenda that will help us to actually start moving up? And I think that's the critical thing.
So,
and that's
what would it take for us to go further?
Pretty much the same thing with control of corruption. And the most important thing is political will. If the political will is there to integrate issues of competitiveness into the policy making, because competitiveness includes issues of control of corruption. And in fact, I know the MCC looks at our at the Global Competitiveness Report as one of the sources, because it's the most broadly based indicator of all the indicators, right? For example, I'm sure you've heard of the Human Capital, Human Development Index, you've heard of the Doing Business Index, but all of those are integrated into competitiveness, right? So really, as I said, the key thing is we as a country, and critically at the summit of decision making at the executive level, need to decide that we're fed up with being where we are, that we want to see something better for our people, and that will needs to drive decision. But that will must also be based on evidence, because for too long we do what we think, what we feel like doing. Now there's no feeling like doing in development. There is evidence of what works and evidence of what doesn't work. So we need to look to the evidence of competitiveness, right? And there's a great deal of evidence there.
So that's what you look for,
and that
when
needs
you
to inform decision making. Yes. Well, yes. It's not just a survey. I mean, the survey that we conducted is one element, but there are many other elements. As I said, the competitiveness index looks at issues of human development. They look at corruption. They look at doing business. There's a great deal of, they look at the labor markets, so and they integrate all that.
Let's stick to the business and labor markets.
Yes.
Let's talk about how Sierra Leone would fit in, and what would it take for us to be in the competition proper.
It's a bit difficult to go into the great detail, but what I'm trying to say is that the factors which need to be examined, the evidence of that, and those factors are already listed. It needs to now be taken into decision making at the cabinet level, so that when cabinet is taking decisions, for example, like how are we going to spend money on, say, transport or education, or to control corruption, that it's within a competitiveness agenda.
Yeah, but
right.
Mr. Jones, Dr. Jones, what I'm saying here is, we know most of our businesses and even the labor market is owned by private investors, and the parliament or the president does not have too much say in what goes in those private entities.
Well, you'd be surprised, for the simple reason, for example, I'm an employer, right? And the most important factor on my ability to employ are the... You
comply with the labor laws?
No, the most important factor is the quality of people that come out of our educational system. And that is very much a government issue. And that quality of people that comes out of the educational system has been dropping since independence, which means it is more and more difficult to get people who we can use to build successful businesses that can compete internationally, right? Okay. So, for example, that's one great issue, right? If you talk about all the issues to do with how to create employment, well, we know that one of the areas where we have a competitive advantage as a country is in the beauty, well, what used to be, and still some vestiges left, the beauty of our natural environment. We've destroyed a lot of it, but there's still a little bit left. That means that tourism is one of the things which we should be focusing on, right? Historically, there's been a lot of talk about it. My firm has done an action plan over 10 years ago, which was just sitting on a shelf. Now I see the new tourism minister taking it seriously, and I hope it will actually lead to results on the ground. Because if you want to suck up the jobs, if you want to create jobs for people to suck up the unemployment, one of the fastest ways we can do it, given a competitive position, is through tourism, right? But tourism, the environment of tourism cannot be created by an individual employer who creates a hotel. The environment has to be created by the government. You cannot develop a country without an enabling environment, which must be facilitated by an enlightened government that looks at evidence as to what its role is, creates the environment, but does not get involved too much in implementing. Because the minute government gets involved in implementing, then who is keeping track and who's setting standards? And what we have often is that government gets confused by trying to do too much, when in fact their role should be to see the layout, create the environment, and let the private sector deliver the goods. Right, so all of that is the issue of competitiveness, and it's that sort of clear thinking, that sort of clear policy direction that we're looking for, and I'm reasonably optimistic. I hope I have a sound basis for that opportunity. We'll soon find out in a year, maybe
And now,
18 months' time.
coming to the production of these competitiveness reports,
Yes.
how do they do it? Do they come to the countries to assess them and all of this, or
It's a good
do
question.
they just look go over the internet and what they can find there is what they use?
Well, the World Economic Forum, I'm sure you know, is one of the most respected international organizations. You know, so anything they do is following best practice. But they have two elements. One we call primary data, which is information that's collected directly in the country by the forum, and then you have secondary data, which is relying on information that other people have already collected. Primary data
not being verified. These other people might have collected the
When I mean
data
other
and
people,
tampered with
when
it.
I mean other people, I don't mean casual
Okay.
individuals.
All right.
I mean, like, for example, the World Bank's doing business report is feeding into the competitiveness index. Well, in terms of primary data, which is collected directly, my firm is responsible for Sierra Leone and Liberia. And every year we interview business executives, and those interviews feed into the competitiveness report for Gambia, not to Gambia, for Sierra Leone and Liberia. Right, but they also consider a range of other information sources, usually from the UN, from World Bank, from the IMF, right? And these are all credible, reputable entities. And now there's a research framework that has been created, which all of that now feeds into and is used to produce estimates of competitiveness.
Okay. Economically, how important is this for this country?
Well, competitiveness is your ability to actually, in the most simplest way, is your ability to produce goods and services that you and I wish to buy and other people outside wish to buy. So if you cannot produce something that you yourself want to buy and I want to buy, that means we have to import from somewhere else because they can sell to us things that we cannot sell to them. That means that we are spending our money to buy from other people, and no one is spending their money from buying to us. So that tells you already that you're in trouble if you're not competitive.
Okay. Thank you very much. We'll come back to you because we'll want to know FJP's role in all of this. Well, we go for a short break. When we come back, we continue with the podium. In case you've just joined us, this is the podium coming to you live on SLBC Television in Freetown for another issue this afternoon. The ordinary members of Parliament who have been demanding for increased salaries this morning held a press briefing at the committee room number 1, where they held discussion with the press and civil society groups. A press conference coincided with the start of the 5 allotted days debate on the 2019 budget. However, Parliament is yet to start the debate. One of the organizations that witnessed the briefing is the Native Consortium and Research Center, and I have in the studios the Executive Director, Edmond Abu Jr. Welcome to the podium, Edmond.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Now, what was discussed during the press briefing?
Well, the Parliament, members of Parliament invited the members of the press and then civil society to roll out their demands. Mark you, it could be recalled that from last week there has been this kind of standstill between the House of Parliament, members of Parliament, and then of course the Minister of Finance over the increment of their wage and salaries and allowances. So they called us to go and give their own part of the debate. I mean, and at least I think fair enough they have a point. So the debates continue. We have another meeting again, another engagement with them, which they promise. We've been yearning for this opportunity to be interfacing with the House of Parliament. So, because most often than not, as for me, for us as a think tank, when we have programs we want to lobby Parliament, sometimes it's very more difficult. I mean, to go with a proposal or maybe for something that you want them to pass or some statutory instrument, it's sometimes very difficult. So at least we are happy that at least they are, I mean, they are beginning to open up. Though people ask the question, why now? Why is it now? They said, of course, why not now? 8,000 miles start with the step. So I mean, the debates continue.
But we want to know the focus of the press conference.
Well, it's to interface with the press to give their own part of the story. I mean, looking at their allowances.
So what did they say? What did they say?
Well, of course, looking at their allowances, for instance, their medical allowances, there is no medical allowance, and they think they demand for an increment, but not from that 300%.
So is it to gain sympathy from you guys? Because most of you people were objecting to the fact that they were calling for such huge.
Well, yeah, because basically we just registered the round disapproval of the public, the members of the public, over that particular 300%, and there was this kind of mistrust around leaked documents, no leaked documents and what have you. So it was really sad. We want to appeal that we don't want this kind of standstill between the finance ministry and then the members of parliament, because whatever it is now, the document, the 2019 bill have been laid into parliament, in the well of parliament. Whether they discuss it or not, and they need to understand this, after 21 days it becomes a law. So there is this kind of backroom, behind the scene arrangements and what have you. But I think it's a matter of that, I mean, they need to look into. But like I said here on Sunday at AYV and other medium, and I also told some of them, I was here on Sunday with most of the parliamentary, with 2 of them from the APC and the SLPP. The mistake actually started way back from the time these people, the House of Parliament, supposed to submit budgets, their budget. Mark you, I mean, from the last budget it was like 20 billion. Now it has been increased to 14 billion. But for the past 3 years, the Parliament themselves, they've not been sending. Well, maybe it's the work of the because there is what they call the Commission of Parliament that does the administrative function of the Parliament. Yeah. So they support, and which is being headed by the clerk. For the last 3 years, fiscal years, the House of Parliament have not been submitting, because most often than not, for us as think tanks, non-state actor, when they go with this budget from the MDAs, we discuss it. In fact, sometimes, for some MDAs, when they have shortfalls in their budget, we sometimes advocate for an increment. So, I mean, there is this. So today they're supposed to have discussed this first. I mean, the first reading, second. Today they adjourned. The House was adjourned. Stand down. I heard the Deputy Speaker said they need to meet at Committee Room 1, and by the end of the day, they hope that all MPs will be happy, quote unquote. So basically that. But actually, Daphne, if you can permit me, on the other side, if you could recall, the Native Consortium, we held a press conference last week. I mean, we are not opportune to come to the podium.
So you a press conference concerning the MP's increase? No.
Well,
let's stick to that, and then we'll come to what you want to say later.
Okay, I
want to know if they did you see unity amongst them?
Of course, in fact,
are they in the majority? All of them, the two-thirds majority,
roundly,
asking
Mark,
for
this is
what
bread
they're
and butter.
asking for.
Mark, roundly. In fact, they have a bipartisan approach to this. All of them. I mean, from all sides of the parliament, from all the parties. So I mean, they are speaking from one hymn sheet.
So did they mention that they were not going to be part of the budget unless their case?
Well, not really. I never heard of that. But basically, I think from us, we also submit to them that due care must be given to this thing. They need to tread cautiously, because as it is now, they are in the bad light of the public. Most of the public think, oh, these people are very selfish. They go there for their selfish interests, as much as they really deserve an increment. I mean, some of them are even comparing their salary with that of the minister, with that of the other directors, with that other civil servants.
They're making that comparison. Most of these directors and some ministers are technocrats. They have master's degrees.
Most of the MPs so most of them, they have. It's not about masters.
But most of them are. Their limited. Their criteria is like for WAS or so.
No, well, exactly. But the fact of the matter is, I mean, when you look at, I really don't want to do PR for Parliament here. I really want to.
But that's why they called you, because they want you to sensitize the public about what they're demanding for.
Yes,
to see reason why they're demanding for it. That's why, because they would call a press conference for just journalists to say what they want to say.
The fact of the matter is,
but the reason they called you, I believe it's for you to tell people why they're asking for this.
Yes, the 300%. So
you're playing the
leaked documents. No, I'm not playing PRO. I mean, Parliament, these are our representatives. I think they deserve respect somehow. When they do something, we bash at them. But honestly, I mean, the leaked document that when the perception, the leaked documents, the 300% to that from 12 million to 37, it was preposterous, unthinkable, and inexcusable. And they backed down from that position. So, which of course they probably need to know. That is not what the MPs are asking for now. They are not asking for 37 million. Efambule know this.
So where did that document come from?
Well, that's a discourse for another day. I think you need to bring.
Maybe they're just shying away from it because the money was too exorbitant.
Well, of course, like I said, they've backed down. I was here with two of them on Sunday, and even they backed down from that position. Okay. So I mean, they are not on that drive anymore.
So what drive are they on?
Well, for an increment, for medical allowances and what have you. So I mean,
and that's reasonable coming from a civil society point of view.
Well, I think fairly enough, because the issue is, mark you, other people are receiving they have medical allowances. Okay. Yeah, as much as this is not a tenure job, mark you, this is not a tenure job, and that is what also they also know that, and some of them need to understand that. For instance, the minister can be sacked at any other time. For the MP, this is a tenure job. It is, they represent the until after 5 years. They cannot be easily sacked.
But they're pensionable, right?
Of course, yes, when it takes some considerable amount of time. But, I mean, the public, the message, there's mixed messages. I mean, around. People are even thinking that, oh, these people want to boycott, they want to stand down the budget. No, I don't think so. I don't think that's what the parliamentarians want to do.
But that's what their action indicates.
No, well, that's it. But you see, basically, even when you go to the Westminster, the one of the best the parliamentary system of government, you have behind the scene arrangements, you have bipartisan arrangements, you have lobbying, you have to. There are a lot of things that is happening. Look at the midterm election in the US. You see the Democrat taking the House. You know, so I mean, basically, you have a lot of arrangement that you need to do. But the issue of again, I'm not in good term with the finance minister, but I think this issue of blackmailing the finance minister. No, I mean but basically the issue of blackmailing the finance minister that that one also is not good. The issue of blackmailing the MPs that they are selfish. We don't want those kind of things.
So did they mention anything about requesting the list, the wage bill for ministers?
Yes, harmonizing the wage bill. I mean, these are central issue around the budget. Of course, yes, they want to harmonize that.
So why are they calling for this at this point in time when they know that their own proposal was rejected?
That is why it's a wait and see. The reason why we blame them is, if they were going to advocate for an increment, it should be a cross-cutting approach. It should be across, not for them alone. And I think they've understood that. They've already understood the public, how the public feel. So next time, even if it is what I call Creole, testilo, they will never testilo this kind of testilo anymore. So, I mean, if there's going to be an increment, let it be across. But I think, fairly enough, they have some legitimate points. They have some legitimate grounds for an increment. So
they have gained your sympathy. Let's go now to your press conference you wanted to mention.
No, we have to be dispassionate here.
From all indications, no, not really. Okay, let's go now to what you wanted to mention.
Yes, like I was saying, firstly, we want to thank the SLBC for giving platform to the Native Consortium for all what we've done, because not all media actually open their door for this particular campaign, because some of them have partnership with the mobile companies. People could recall, I've been there times and again to tell the public about the class litigation, about the poor quality service of the mobile companies, about the high tariff, and we advocate, we've engaged them on several fronts from 2016, meetings upon meetings. All have fell on deaf ears. So basically, we went to Bintumani conference last year, March, and then we had a social contract, simple agreement that the mobile companies are going to increase their tariff on voice. You know, they have two types of tariff on voice and data. they should increase their tariff on voice from 410 euros for 1 minute to 650 euros for 1 minute. And then they make commitment B, that they should improve on their service, their network connectivity. And then part of the deal was that if they fail, they should revert back to the 410. Simple agreement, communicated, signed. I was there, I was diametrically opposed to it. I knew they were not going to up their game. They gave them 4 months. The 4 months start April 1, 2017 to 31st of July. And these people failed. They failed. We came here again. SLBC hosted us. They called some consumer protection. We told them, no, Mr. Momo Conte, these people, Natcom, these people have failed. They failed the KPI. They have established what they call key performance indicators, which serve as a parameter, technical parameter, to assess them. And we perform what we call public perception survey, along with SLBC and other people. We went around all the districts and we found out that they failed. In fact, their service went to the lowest of the low. At the end of the day, our lawyers, our team of lawyers, led by Musa Pius Hemosise, Esquire, wrote them a letter giving them 72 hours to respond. In fact, they thought we were jokers. At the end of the day, we filed class action against them. 300 litigants, including yourself. So, and we, of course, the petition, we had 10,000 petitions. People who wanted to be on the litigation. So what's the progress? The progress of the case now, we've got a default judgment on the 28th of July. The case has been assigned, of course, to Justice D.B. Edwards. This Friday coming, next tomorrow, possibly we'll have the judgment. Okay. Of course, three of the defendants, Afrisel, first defendant, Orant, second defendant, Seratel, third defendant, and Natcom, fourth defendant. Natcom brought them on the grounds of breach of statutory duty. When you get Papa, we're not able to feed you. I mean, based upon Section 39 of the Telecoms Act, they should protect us. They failed. So we brought them in. And then, of course, if you can recall, we came here again. When they failed, Natcom fined them. Okay. You remember, Afrisel, $450,000, Orange, $750,000, and they gave them that they should give us 3 days free call. Yeah? Yes, we know. You remember? All of that. Fine. What they did was they gave us half free call from 10 o'clock to, from 11 o'clock a.m. to 5. And that free call ended to be a nightmare. Yes. That one also is an effort. So what are you expecting on Friday? Of course, we expect justice. We just want the people, because let me tell you something, that it's not about the winning. We just want a deterrent. Okay. We want a punitive, because the fines no longer serve as a deterrent. In fact, it's even emboldened them now to cheat more. So when we bring them to the court, we think the court will give the people of this country justice, and then people will believe it. Because two things before I end. We want, people of Sierra Leone want quality service and cheaper tariff. Okay, thank you very much, Edmond Abu Jr. And we go again to the Deputy Commissioner General of the Anti-Corruption Commission, Mr. Shole Davis. We know that you are, most of the time you go after these public officials, but mostly corruption happens in these little quarters. Take for example what happened yesterday at Lumley over a dispute of land. We see what went on, because this claiming this land, this claiming. What do you do in cases like this, or you just wait for the big fishes to fry?
We're very much aware of the fact that corruption does not only take place in high places, it is also prevalent in what you call small places as well, in the private sector, in small businesses, etc. Which is why petty corruption for us has not gone out of the radar. We are still pursuing petty corruption through our Pay No Bribe campaign. It is a campaign actually that is geared towards giving a voice to the public to report on instances or their experiences on corruption. And once we get those reports, we collate the reports and then we forward to the relevant institutions of government that are responsible to address those concerns. And we collect the feedback, and we also provide those feedback to the public, so that they have confidence in government's efforts to deal with corruption. We know that the challenges of corruption are many, they are multifaceted, but of course, we are guided under the provisions of the Anti-Corruption Act of 2008. those offences that fall under the Anti-Corruption Act 2008 are the offences that fall under our jurisdiction. Okay. Those are the ones that we'll go after. Some other issues actually are administrative in nature, and oftentimes when we get complaints about issues relating to administrative nuances, we will forward to the respective institutions to handle it, and then we'll follow up on the outcomes of those matters. Sometimes we also forward our cases to the ombudsman.
Okay.
Yes, so administrative matters are actually forwarded back to the respective institutions.
Okay, coming back to the issue of the St. Mary's Fawaz building and the enterprises that you closed down. Have you investigated the figures, the amounts that they have not been paying?
Well, indicative figures are pointing at something around the region of 800 million. It's
for each of them, or just St. Mary's?
Just that is entity, and the figures might change, over time as we go ahead with the investigations. Several other institutions are also culpable. We are actually now looking into the business sector to see how.
So you're working with NRA, you're getting this information from them, or are you bypassing them to get?
We are not by any means bypassing any.
So why not wait for them to bring the matters to you?
We can't wait. The fight against
That's
corruption.
their job.
The fight against corruption cannot wait. If they have not done it, we will do it.
Okay, continue to stay with us in the program, and over to you, Dr. Omodele Jones. Let's talk about the role the FJP plays in all of this global competitiveness report.
Okay, as mentioned earlier, there's an element called the Executive Opinion Survey that surveys national business leaders. That information is information that is taken directly into account by the World Economic Forum in Geneva, and we facilitate that survey. We undertake that survey for them in Sierra Leone and in Liberia, and provide that information to them. The other role that we play is in trying to create awareness of the importance. We don't do this for the fun of it. We are very.
How do you create awareness? This is the first time I'm meeting you here.
Really? No, I think if you go back in your records, I've been on TV here before. We had adverts about the Global Competitiveness Report from 2012.
Is it just for the launch that you create awareness? Or you do it over a period of time so that people would know
we have a multimedia approach to this. We also present, personally, I've been influential in promoting the Inclusive National Conversation, which has a post and presence on Facebook, and also be a national, in the old days, where we actually pushed for constitutional review, coming out of all of these competitors' issues. So we are very active in many ways. We've been a bit quiet of late because I think we became quiet because we lost. I'd say personally that I lost confidence that we were moving. I think that you remember there was a time when I was appointed to the Constitutional Review Commission and I resigned.
That's why I knew that
I resigned because I lost confidence, and my time is precious. I don't like wasting my time. So since I lost confidence in the appointing authorities, I knew that we were going nowhere in particular. I decided to wait out for something new to happen.
So do you think now that you've come out, it's a better atmosphere?
I am hoping so, and we are hoping that the sign that we're seeing already with the anti-corruption making progress is an indication of general change that will lead to better for this country. The reason why I was personally more quiet was because I didn't see us going anywhere in particular.
So let's talk about the launch.
The launch is at the British Council at 1:30 p.m. on Monday. Entrance is free. We are liaising with certain elements of government at the moment to coordinate their participation in that. So it is. We also have an economist from World Economic Forum, Roberto Crotti. He is the economist for Africa. He will be doing the main part of the presentation online. He will not be physically here, but he'll be doing it online. We're projecting. Just as a quick point, if we have a short time as well, the matter of the MPs, this is why competitiveness is important. We must take the big picture. What matters is not just MP pay, it is the cost of government. If the government is too expensive, then they have to borrow money to finance themselves. And if they borrow too much money, they then squeeze out money out of the financial system that should be going into private industry. When they do that, you cannot develop because interest rates go up, and you then find that basically the economy cannot grow. So this matter of how much you pay MPs, how much you pay civil servants, and in fact how much government spends is not just a matter of MP pay. It's a question of the entire cost of government, which is too high in this country and actually kills productive industry.
Okay, thank you very much. Well, to some of the text messages, this one says, Edmond, did Parliament demand for the harmonization of all salaries with their letter to the Financial Secretary? The harmonization of the MPs are calling for is not realistic, and I guess the executive would adhere to that call. How can MPs ask of medical allowances when we have free health care? Mr. Davis, will the ACC win the fight against corruption by just retrieving corrupt proceeds and allow individuals that commit corruption to go free without jail term? The desperation of increase in salaries started with the president and ministers. These are people who said they inherited a broken economy, but now they went ahead and increased their salaries. Well done, Dr. Jones. I like your analysis. These are the type of experts we need out in offices. Well done to the ACC. Keep it up. Dr. Jones, Sierra Leone drops 15 places down in the doing business ranking. What could be responsible for this? Too many taxes and corruption could be responsible for Sierra Leone deteriorating business environment. The fight against these mobile companies has delayed for too long. Why? Mr. Davis.
Well, I think the texters deserve some commendation for insight into the discussions that we've had so far. And let me also say that it is not always that you will go for prosecution on matters of corruption. There are times when you make more impact when you go after the loot. And this is what we're trying to do, because that is what helps the economy.
And then even after the loot?
Even after the loot, we go after the corrupt individuals. So we would use multifaceted approaches in dealing with corruption. One size does not fit all. Okay. So much as we would pursue the prosecution of cases in court for maximum deterrent, we also believe that recovery of stolen wealth is also what this country needs, more than ever before.
Dr. Jones, Sierra Leone dropped 15 places down the doing business ranking. What's responsible?
Well,
are you aware?
Well, the doing business ranking is produced by the World Bank and is an input into the Global Competitiveness Report of the World Economic Forum. I don't want to go into detail about that because I'm more focused on the influence that it has on the competitiveness ranking. Okay. But certainly what matters overall is, as I said, a joined-up approach. We shouldn't take things in isolation. We need to come up with a broad-based development and recovery agenda, which means that we must avoid what tends to happen if we think in terms of projects. We have one small area and we think if we get it improved, then everything else will improve. No, because sometimes when we focus on that one area, we do things that cancel out improvement on other areas. Okay. So we need to have a complete holistic approach to development, which really involves even matters, I said, of the cost of government. And that's one of the most critical elements for competitiveness. Because it's like going to run a race and you're spending so much on the coach that you have no money to spend on the athlete. It doesn't make any sense. So certainly, we need to have joined up thinking in our policies. And I have some hope that with the new administration, that there will be a move towards that sort of approach.
So you will not give up this time?
I didn't give up. I laid low whilst I was waiting to see. Yes, because there's no point putting a lot of effort when you know you're not going to get much results.
So you think you'll get more results now?
I hope so.
Okay.
If you see me lie low after a while, then that will tell you something.
Okay, thank you very well. Well, how long would you lie low? You push. So
life,
things happen.
Yes.
Finally to you, Edmond Abu Jr. Someone says the fight against the mobile companies has delayed for too long.
Well, it's up to the justice system. We were really disappointed. We even wrote to the CJ. I think the wheels of justice is moving now faster, and we hope that the people of this country will be liberated. It's not about winning. It's not about taking. We just want to sanitize, if you like, the telecommunication industry. Too much of cheating. People are suffering in silence, and the tariff is very high. So we think, and we are very much, we are 120% confident that this case is winnable. And then coming to the MPs, let us inform the public that they've backed down and that leaked document is no more.
So they no longer want an increase.
No.
However little.
No,
they don't.
Naturally
because
there is
you
an
say
increment.
they
No, there is an
back, like
Mark you, they used to have 12 billion allocation. Now it's 14 billion. So naturally there is an increment. So I mean they will come again and then let them come and speak. But basically the 37 million is no more. And let the people public understand that. But again, you see, this issue of fighting against the mobile company, if you keep quiet, people say, oh, they don't go bribe you. That is why from time to time we come and inform you because it is a public interest. So we want to thank SMBC
we expect something good.
No, yeah, after Friday we'll come back again to the podium. Yeah, sure.
Okay, thank you very much for being part of the podium. Many thanks to my studio guests. Well, that's how we end the podium for this afternoon. Thanks for being part of it. Our quote for today comes from former United States freedom fighter Martin Luther King, and it says, non-violence means avoiding not only external physical violence but also internal violence of the spirit. You not only refuse to shoot a man, you refuse to hate him. I hope we'll all learn that we refuse to hate someone, whatever. My producer has been Simon Saka. My name is Stephanie Simon. Stay tuned to the SBC. The podium returns tomorrow same time on the same channel.